Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. Cruel thing she did. My wife, Simone, brought her entire family to the courthouse like it was a show, sat them behind her so they could watch me lose, and let her lawyer accuse me of being emotionally unsafe. Then smirked when I realized she had been coaching the whole narrative for months. Passing Square on Saturday mornings used to be our soft place, the part of life that felt unarguable. The row homes sat shoulder to shoulder like they were holding each other up, and our block stayed quiet until the brunch crowd began hunting for parking. I always woke before Simone, not because I was noble, but because I liked the quiet routine, the kettle clicking on, the radiator hissing, the low hum of the refrigerator, and the smell of coffee blooming in the grinder. I would toast bread, slice fruit, and leave her mug warming near the stove so she could wrap both hands around it when she walked in. She used to come downstairs in one of my sweatshirts, hair pulled back, eyes still soft, and lean into me without thinking. That small lean mattered to me more than any grand gesture. The open loop started as a detail I barely registered, until I heard the same name echo later in a courtroom. Simone's phone lit up beside the fruit bowl while she cut oranges, bright banners flashing across the screen. Therapy with Tessa Live. Stop giving access to people who do not deserve it. Simone's thumb moved fast. She cleared it like a reflex, then set the phone face down. I remember the way the screen went dark and how her face stayed set, like she had rehearsed something in her mind and needed the moment to be perfect. The kitchen smelled like citrus and toast. Outside, a delivery truck rattled down the street, and someone's dog barked once, sharp and bored. Simone inhaled, steadying herself, and I felt my stomach tighten without knowing why. "I've been doing a lot of work on myself," she said, not looking at me. Her tone was calm in a way that made me feel like I was already behind. I smiled, relieved, because I thought this meant honesty. "Okay," I said. "Tell me." She finally met my eyes and said, "I realized we have a codependent dynamic." The word sounded foreign coming from her. Simone used to laugh at corporate jargon and self-help language. Now, she said codependent like it came with credentials. I did not argue. I asked, "What do you mean?" She lifted her chin and said, "It means you expect access to me. My time, my emotional energy, my body, and I need space. Autonomy. I'm finding myself." Then she withdrew the first thing I valued, cleanly and without emotion. When I leaned in to kiss her cheek, she turned her head just enough that my lips hit air. "I'm not available for physical affection right now," she said. "Please do not take it personally." The sentence landed like a door shutting. I stood there with the coffee mug warming my hand, heart dropping in a slow, humiliating way. Our kitchen looked the same. White cabinets, a small plant on the sill, the cutting board still damp from fruit. But the air felt altered, like someone had changed the temperature while I wasn't looking. I wanted to ask if I had done something wrong, if she was angry, if she was hurt. But her face was so composed that any emotional reaction from me felt like it would become evidence. Over the next week, Simone repeated the script in different packaging. When I asked if she wanted to watch our show after dinner, she said she needed solo time to regulate. When I reached for her hand during a walk near Dickinson Square, she said touch felt invasive right now. When I asked if we could talk about what was happening, she said, "I do not have the capacity for emotional labor tonight." Emotional labor. She said it like she had finally found a phrase that made my needs sound selfish. People like to say, "No one owes affection." They say it like it is wisdom. But when your spouse uses it to justify withholding basic warmth while still demanding partnership benefits, it stops being wisdom and starts being a weapon. I try to be patient. I told myself this was stress, a phase, maybe a new lens she was experimenting with. I made dinner anyway. I cleaned anyway. I asked gentle questions and tried not to crowd her. But the withdrawal spread like a stain. She stopped sitting with me. She stopped texting me throughout the day. She stopped asking how my meetings went or if my mother's arthritis was acting up. When I came home, she would be on the couch with her AirPods in, eyes fixed on the wall like she was listening to something more important than her life. Sometimes I could hear faint audio bleeding through, A woman's calm voice talking about detaching, about protecting your peace, about retraining your nervous system around unsafe people. The clues were everywhere once I looked. A paperback on her nightstand with a neon cover, Boundaries or Love. A second book, spine cracked, The Courage to Detach. A podcast playing while she folded laundry. The host describing how enmeshment disguises itself as love. And a TikTok account, Therapy with Tessa, always has the same clean lighting and bold captions. If they ask where you are, that is control. If they want reassurance, that is insecurity. If they're hurt, do not rush to soothe. Protect your autonomy. Simone began quoting it without quoting it. If I asked where she was going, she said, I do not need to account for my movement. If I asked her to come to my Aunt's Sunday dinner, she said, I'm not obligated to participate in your family system. It would have been easier if she had been obviously cruel, if she had yelled, insulted me, slammed doors. But Simone stayed calm. She stayed polite. That made me question myself. When I told her I missed her, she tilted her head like a therapist and said, that is your attachment speaking. When I asked if she still loved me, she said, love is not possession. When I asked for a hug one night after a brutal day at work, she stepped back and said, I am not responsible for regulating your emotions. I went to bed in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint vibration of her phone in the master bedroom, and felt something ugly settle in my chest, shame mixed with grief. I had built my idea of marriage around steadiness. Now steadiness was being framed as weakness. The first true betrayal came through my mother. She called me midweek, voice trembling, and asked why Simone had told her I was emotionally unstable. What? I said, certain I had misheard. She called me Julian, my mother whispered. She said you have been making her feel unsafe. She said you might need help. She asked if you have ever been angry. The word angry hung there like an accusation. I sat in my office bathroom with my tie loosened, staring at a crack in the tile like it could anchor me. Simone had not just withdrawn from me. She was planting seeds around me, quietly, so that if I ever reacted like a hurt human being, she could call it proof. That night, I waited until she walked into the kitchen and took her AirPods out. Why did you call my mother? I asked. Simone did not look startled. She did not look guilty. She looked prepared. I needed support, she said. I cannot carry this alone. Carry what? I asked. Our marriage. She folded her arms. I have been carrying your needs for years. My throat tightened. Simone, you have been withdrawing affection and communication for weeks. How is that carrying me? She shrugged, a small lift of one shoulder. That is your perception. Then she added, flat and calm, you are doing the thing again, making my healing about you. I started sleeping lightly. I would wake at 3 a.m. with my chest tight, listening to her footsteps when she went to the bathroom, wondering if she was texting someone. I began to censor myself. Every sentence felt like something she could twist later. I stopped venting after work because she had started labeling anything emotional as dumping. I stopped asking about her day because her answers were vague and sharp. I began to feel like a guest in my own home. And still, I kept trying. I suggested couples therapy. She said, couples therapy is often used to maintain toxic dynamics. I asked what she needed. She said space. I asked how long. She said, stop demanding timelines. Then came the money angle. It started small. Her sister needed help with rent. Her mother needed a plane ticket. Her cousin's birthday dinner needed reservations. Simone slid these requests into conversation like they were obvious obligations. For years, I had handled most of the logistics because I was good at it. I remember dates. I booked things. I sent transfers. I did it because I loved Simone and because I believed partnership meant carrying each other's world sometimes. But now she was withdrawing from my world entirely while still expecting me to carry hers. One evening, after she asked me to send $600 to her sister, like we always do, something in me settled into clarity. I responded with a calm mirror move. Not yelling, not punishing, just logic. I hear you, I said. You need autonomy. Space. You are not available for certain things right now. Simone's eyes narrowed as if she sensed a trap. I continued anyway. So, I'm going to honor my autonomy too. I will not be transferring money to your sister. I will not be coordinating your family events. I will not be doing emotional labor for your family while you withdraw from our marriage. She stared at me like I had spoken in another language. What are you talking about? She said. I kept my voice even. If no one owes affection, then no one owes labor either. Emotional labor is labor, and boundaries apply to more than physical touch. Simone's face flushed. You are being punitive, she said. I am being consistent, I replied. I'm finding myself too. That phrase, finding myself, was one I had never used in my life. Saying it back to her felt strange, but it made the point cleanly. Simone stepped closer, eyes sharp. This is financial coercion, she said, like she had been waiting to deploy the term. It is not coercion to stop volunteering my money, I replied. You have access to your income. You have access to the accounts. You can support your family if you choose. I am choosing not to. Her mouth tightened. You are unsafe, she said softly, and the softness made it worse. Like a diagnosis. Like a verdict. After that, she escalated in a way that made my skin crawl. She started collecting witnesses. It began with a Friday night wine hangout with her friends from work. She told me to join them for accountability. I walked into my own living room and found Simone sitting straight back like a host on a panel. 3 women angled toward me with polite smiles and alert eyes. One of them said, "We're worried about Simone." Simone didn't look at me. She looked at them, then said, "I've been carrying a lot, and Julian doesn't see it." I didn't defend myself emotionally. I asked, "What specifically?" Simone's friend replied, "She says you expect her to meet your emotional needs." I breathed slowly. Who schedules our life? I asked. Who calls the plumber? Who manages the bills, the grocery list, the family calendar? Who remembers your dad's medical appointments? Who drives him when your sister can't? The room went quiet. Simone's cousin frowned. That is not the point. That is the point, I said. We're discussing labor and fairness. Simone's eyes hardened. He always does this, she said. He makes it transactional. I looked at her. You made it transactional when you withdrew intimacy and communication, but still expected me to carry your obligations. One of her friends shook her head and said, "You are making her heel about you." I replied, "I am asking for balance." Simone ended the night by announcing, calmly, "I have been recording conversations for my protection." The sentence made the room tilt. Recording? I repeated. Simone sipped her wine like she was discussing the weather. In case this becomes something, she said. That was a threat dressed as self-care. I didn't argue. I nodded once and said, "Noted." Inside, something broke and hardened at the same time. If she was building a file, then my job was to stop feeding it. I began speaking less. I began writing things down privately, dates, incidents, exact phrases, because reality was starting to feel like something she could rewrite. Simone took her campaign wider. She called my aunt and told her I was going through something. She told our mutual friends that I needed space to work on myself, implying I had asked for distance, not her. 2 couples we used to double date with stopped replying to my texts. One friend, a man I had known since college, said he didn't want to be in the middle. Simone had gotten to them first. She didn't ask for peace. She asked for allegiance. And they gave it to her because it was easier than asking uncomfortable questions. I started feeling isolated in a way that was hard to explain. I wasn't being screamed at. I was being quietly erased from my own community. She also brought it to church. We didn't go often, but Simone started attending a women's group on Wednesday nights. She came home with pamphlets about healthy detachment and spiritual boundaries. One evening, she told me the group leader agreed that I had control patterns. I asked, "What patterns?" She said, "The way you want closeness." My chest tightened. "Wanting closeness with your wife is not control," I said. Simone smiled faintly. "That is exactly what a controlling person would say," she replied. No remorse, no empathy, just the cold satisfaction of having a framework where I could never win. The loneliness became physical. I would come home to a house that smelled like lemon cleaner, lights on in rooms I wasn't welcome in. Simone moved into master bedroom and declared it her safe space. She told me to sleep in the guest room. She told me not to knock unless it was urgent. She told me, "Your sadness is not my responsibility to regulate." I began eating dinner alone at the kitchen island. I would stare at the chair across from me and feel a heavy, childish thought rise. How did I become someone unworthy of basic warmth? Some nights I would sit in my car outside the house for 10 minutes just to delay walking into the silence. I tried one last time to reach her without confrontation. "Simone," I said one night, "I miss you. I miss us." She didn't look up from her phone. "Missing something does not mean you are entitled to it," she said. "That's a comment people love," I replied quietly. "No one owes affection. But marriage isn't a subscription you cancel without conversation." Simone finally looked at me, eyes flat. "You were trying to trap me with obligation," she said. "I'm trying to understand why you stopped being my partner," I replied. She shrugged. "I am choosing myself," she said, like a slogan, like a stamped justification for anything that followed. When I asked if she was seeing someone else, she gave me a look that was almost amused. "That question is a violation of my privacy," she said. "I will not engage in paranoia." The word paranoia made me feel small and unstable. I knew something was happening. Late nights, new perfume, locked phone, but I could not prove it, and Simone was skilled at making my intuition sound like a flaw. That is a special kind of suffering, living in the space between knowing and proving, while the person you love insists you are wrong for noticing. I began to doubt my own perception. I would replay conversations in my head and wonder if I was the problem. Then I would remember her voice on the phone with my mother, planting concern like landmines, and the doubt would turn to anger I swallowed down. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, like a quiet explosion. Simone slid them across the kitchen island as if she were placing a receipt. "This is for the best," she said. "I need to reclaim my life." The petition accused me of emotional neglect, financial manipulation, and creating a hostile environment. She requested the house, spousal support, and a temporary order limiting my access to shared accounts. I read the words twice, trying to understand how my quiet, consistent love had been transformed into something ugly on legal paper. "This is not true," I said. Simone didn't blink. "It is my truth," she replied. I felt something cold settle in me. "Truth is not a mood," I wanted to say, but I kept my face steady because I could feel her watching for a reaction. She moved fast after filing, like she had been planning it for months. The next day, she emailed me a communication boundary list. No calls after 8 p.m., no unannounced conversations, all logistics via email, no physical contact, no emotional requests. Reading it felt like reading terms and conditions for my own marriage. A week later, she tried to freeze me out financially with emotion, claiming I was volatile and might drain accounts. I learned about it when my car declined a grocery store in front of a line of strangers. I stood there with a basket of basic food, heat crawling up my neck, while the cashier said, "It's not going through." I paid with a backup card and walked to my car shaking. When I got home and asked Simone what happened, she said, "I'm protecting myself." No remorse, just justification. I hired a lawyer because I had no choice. My attorney, Ms. Ellis, was calm and direct. She didn't dramatize anything, which I appreciated because my life already felt like a script. She asked me for facts, dates, messages, finances. I gave her what I had. I also told her about therapy with Tessa, the TikTok account Simone had been glued to. Ms. Ellis raised an eyebrow and asked, "Do you have proof she's working with this person?" At the time, I didn't. I had only the notifications, the books, and the language. But I told her it feels coached. She nodded slowly and said, "Then we will treat it like a coached narrative. We will focus on evidence." The weeks leading up to court were brutal. Simone's family treated me like a villain. Her mother stopped answering my calls. Her sister posted vague quotes online about surviving narcissists. Friends I thought knew me avoided me. At work, I sat through meetings and smiled, then went to the restroom afterward and pressed my palms against the sink, breathing slowly until the shaking eased. At home, Simone walked past me like I was furniture. She never asked if I was okay. She never softened when she saw the exhaustion on my face. If anything, my suffering seemed to irritate her, like it inconvenienced the story she wanted to tell about her empowerment. I started feeling like a man on trial before the trial even began. Then Simone did something that made my stomach drop with clarity. she invited her family to the hearing. On the morning of court, I woke in the guest room with the taste of stale anxiety in my mouth. I dressed in silence, knotting my tie with hands that felt detached from my body. When I walked into the living room, Simone was already dressed in a cream blazer, hair slicked back, face polished. And her family was there, her mother by the window, her father stiff as a statue, her sister on our couch scrolling her phone, two aunts standing like they were waiting for a bus. They looked at me with anticipation, not concern. Simone said, "They're here for support." Her sister said, loud enough for everyone, "Do not let him charm the judge." In the courthouse in Center City, Simone's family filled the row behind her. I could feel their eyes on my back like heat lamps. The air smelled like old paper and hand sanitizer. Simone's attorney spoke first, framing me as controlling, emotionally distant, resistant to Simone's growth. He said Simone had been forced to create boundaries due to my enmeshment. He described my decision to stop transferring money to her sister as retaliation and coercion. Simone sat perfectly still, hands folded, expression serene. Her family watched me like they wanted to see me shrink. I focused on breathing, on keeping my face neutral, on not giving them the satisfaction of watching me crack. Inside, I felt like I was dissolving, betrayed, isolated, accused, and unable to defend the love I had given without sounding defensive. When it was our turn, Ms. Ellis stood and did not perform. She spoke plainly about finances, our comparable incomes, shared access, the pattern of transfers I had made voluntarily. She described Simone's sudden withdrawal and the timeline of legal motions. Then Simone's attorney said, "Your Honor, we would like to call our witness." Simone's family leaned forward, ready. The courtroom door opened, and a woman walked in with a sleek ponytail and a folder tucked under her arm like she belonged there. I recognized her immediately from Simone's phone. Tessa Caldwell. Therapy with Tessa. Hearing the name out loud made my chest tighten, because suddenly the months of scripted language, the calm cruelty, the strategic accusations, all clicked into place. Simone did not look at me. Her eyes stayed on the judge like she was above all of it. Tessa took the stand with confidence that didn't match the setting. Simone's attorney introduced her as a relationship wellness coach and boundary educator. Tessa smiled slightly, like she was about to teach a lesson. She spoke in smooth phrases that sounded like captions. Partners confuse access with love. Withdrawing can be protective. Boundaries are necessary when someone is codependent. Simone's family nodded along, satisfied, like they had brought a certified stamp of approval. I sat still, jaw clenched, feeling a hot, helpless rage. This woman had never been in our home, never watched me care for Simone when she was sick, never seen me drive her father to appointments, never heard the private promises we made. Yet she was describing me like a type, a character, a villain in a story she understood from a distance. Ms. Ellis stood and asked, "Ms. Caldwell, are you licensed to practice therapy in Pennsylvania?" Tessa's smile tightened. "I'm a coach," she said. "So you're not a therapist," Ms. Ellis clarified. "Not a psychologist. Not a licensed counselor." "Correct," Tessa replied, voice slightly less confident. Ms. Ellis nodded, then asked, "Are you qualified to diagnose codependency?" "I don't diagnose," Tessa said quickly. Ms. Ellis didn't argue. She pivoted to evidence. "Did you have direct communication with Simone Carter?" Tessa hesitated. Simone's jaw tightened visibly. "I provide general guidance," Tessa said. Ms. Ellis lifted a stack of printed records. Venmo payments labeled session. Direct messages. Voice notes. "We can submit them." A murmur rolled through the gallery behind Simone. The first recording played, clear and calm. Tessa's voice filled the courtroom. "If he asks for reassurance, do not give it. Make him sit in discomfort. He will either comply or implode. Either way, you win." The words landed like a heavy object. Simone's sister's mouth fell open. One of Simone's aunts turned her head sharply, eyes narrowing at Simone. Simone didn't apologize. She didn't flinch with regret. She stared forward, eyes hard, like anger could erase audio. Ms. Ellis asked, "Ms. Caldwell, did you advise Simone to withdraw affection and communication as a strategy?" Tessa swallowed. I talk about nervous system regulation, she said. Ms. Ellis replied, you talked about winning. Then she asked, did you advise Simone to bring her family to court for pressure? Tessa tried to keep her composure. I may have suggested support, she said. Ms. Ellis played another clip. Bring your mom, your sister, people who can stare him down. He cares about his image. Use that. The judge's expression cooled, subtle but unmistakable. Simone's father shifted in his seat like someone had shoved him. Simone's mother's face went pale, and her lips pressed together so tightly they nearly disappeared. Simone's sister whispered, what is this? To no one in particular. Simone stayed still, jaw set, the mask of calm now looking less like healing and more like calculation. I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. Relief that reality was finally audible, sorrow that it had to be proven in public for anyone to believe me. The final karma arrived without fireworks, just the sudden collapse of the story Simone had been selling. Ms. Ellis played one more clip, Simone's own voice, casual, confident, like she was speaking to a friend. If I get the house, I can sell it and move closer to Marcus. He said he can't fully commit until I'm free. The name Marcus hit the room like a slap. Simone's mother turned toward her. Marcus, she whispered, loud in the silence. Simone finally moved, just a flicker across her face. Not guilt, no shame, annoyance, like her plan had been inconvenienced. Simone's sister stared at her, eyes burning. You brought us here for this? Simone didn't answer. She didn't even look at them. She kept her eyes forward, as if refusing to acknowledge the wreckage. Simone's attorney tried to object, tried to regain control, but the judge's questions were sharp and grounded. About the coaching relationship, about the payments, about the attempt to frame strategy as therapy, about the financial claims that didn't match evidence. The courtroom shifted from feelings to facts. When temporary orders came down, they were firm and quiet. The house would be sold, proceeds split. No spousal support. No restricting my access to shared accounts. A warning about misrepresentation. Tessa's expert role was dismissed for what it was. Unlicensed opinion wrapped in buzzwords. Simone's family filed out behind her in stunned silence. Not looking at me. Not looking at each other. They had come for a victory lap. They left feeling used. In the hallway, Simone finally spoke to me, voice low and sharp. You set me up, she hissed. I stared at her for a long moment. She looked polished and controlled. The same woman who had turned away from my kiss in a kitchen that smelled like oranges. I did not make you say any of that, I replied. I just stopped protecting the story. Simone's eyes narrowed, not with regret, but with resentment. She looked past me toward her family, who stood clustered at the end of the hall like strangers forced together by shock. Her mother did not hug her. Her father did not speak. Her sister looked like she wanted to leave without her. Simone turned away from me and walked toward them anyway. Chin lifted like pride could hold her up. I did not follow. I did not gloat. I did not raise my voice. I walked outside into the cold air and let it hit my lungs. The city moved around me. People rushing, taxis honking, winter sun reflecting off glass. Normal life continuing, indifferent. I sat in my car for a long time, hands on the steering wheel, shaking in small waves that came and went. I wasn't shaking from fear. I was shaking from release. Months of being accused, minimized, isolated, and quietly threatened had built pressure inside me. The court didn't fix the grief, but it cut through the lie. For the first time in a long time, I felt like I could stand in my own reality without apologizing for it. Going home was its own kind of pain. The row home looked the same from the outside. Inside, it felt like a place where a version of me had died. Simone wasn't there when I walked in. The kitchen still had the fruit bowl, the plant by the window, the faint smell of lemon cleaner. I went to the guest room and opened the closet. My suits hung there like a line of silent witnesses. I packed 2 suitcases slowly, folding clothes with hands that didn't feel connected to my body. I left the key on the counter and wrote a single note. I will communicate through counsel. No emotional plea. No goodbye. I didn't slam the door. I didn't call anyone. I just removed my presence. Sometimes the most satisfying boundary is silence. The next weeks were the hardest because court endings do not erase emotional bruises. I moved into a small one-bedroom in Graduate Hospital with big windows and no history in the walls. The first night, the silence was so clean it felt like pressure in my ears. I slept in 2-hour blocks, waking up expecting to hear Simone's footsteps or her phone vibrating in the next room. I would sit on the edge of the bed and feel the weight of betrayal settle in my chest like a stone. Some days I missed her voice. Other days I missed the idea of her. Most days I felt ashamed that I had loved someone who could watch me suffer and call it my attachment issues. People say boundaries can be weaponized. I learned it the hard way. Simone never reached out with regret. Not once. Communication stayed cold and legal. She fought the sale of the house, delaying paperwork, challenging valuations, tried to regain control through the process. When my lawyer asked for signatures, Simone's replies were clipped. I will respond in due course. Do not rush me. I am protecting my peace. Each email felt like another small attempt to position herself as the victim of my request for basic cooperation. Her family, meanwhile, pulled away from her, but not in a dramatic, cinematic way. It was quieter and more brutal. Her sister stopped returning her calls. Her mother stopped showing up to meetings. Her father refused to co-sign anything. They didn't rally around her story anymore because they had heard her voice admitting motive. Karma, I realized, doesn't always come as a collapse. Sometimes it comes as people simply stepping back from you when they finally see who you are. I suffered in ways no one saw. At work, I functioned. I attended meetings, smiled, and delivered results. Then I would go to the restroom afterward and press my palms against the sink, breathing slowly until the shaking eased. I stopped eating lunch with coworkers because casual conversation felt impossible. My mind was always replaying scenes. Simone turning her cheek, Simone calling my mother, Simone saying unsafe like a label, Simone's family leaning forward in court. At night, I ate standing up because sitting at a table for one felt too lonely. I would wash a plate and stare at the water running, thinking about how easily a person can be rewritten as a villain when someone wants to leave cleanly. I started running in the mornings because I needed my body to feel like it belonged to me again. Some friends never came back. The couples who had gone quiet stayed quiet. One woman I had known for years sent a message that read, "I'm glad you're both doing what's best for your growth." Growth. That word again, used like a curtain to hide cruelty behind. I wanted to reply, do you know what she did? I wanted to send recordings, court orders, and evidence. But I didn't. I was tired of pleading for belief. I learned something sharp and painful. If someone chooses a story over a person, facts rarely change them. They prefer comfort. And sometimes the comfort is believing the more polished person. Simone had always been polished. I had always been steady. In the wrong lighting, steady looks boring and polished looks like truth. The house sale was finalized months later. I watched my signature turn into a transaction that ended a chapter of my life. When the proceeds hit my account, I didn't feel triumphant. I felt hollow. That house had been Saturday mornings and fruit bowls and the lean of her hip against the counter. It had also been lemon cleaner and locked doors and accusations. I used part of the money to pay legal fees, part to pay down debt, and part to build a small cushion so I could breathe without fear. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post anything. I didn't celebrate. My transformation wasn't about making Simone see what she lost. It was about making my life survivable again. Quietly, privately. Simone's karma had a second, more realistic edge. Marcus didn't want her when the house wasn't a prize. I didn't learn this from gossip. I learned it from a single email Simone sent months later, trying to reopen negotiations. I am willing to consider alternate arrangements, she wrote, vague and formal. Ms. Ellis asked me if I wanted to respond. I read the email twice and felt nothing but fatigue. I didn't ask what it meant. I didn't ask if Marcus had left. I didn't ask if Simone was lonely. My lawyer replied with a short, professional no. Later, a mutual acquaintance mentioned seeing Simone alone at an event she used to attend with a man. The acquaintance said Simone looked angry. Not sad. Not reflective. Angry. No remorse, even when her own plan didn't pay out. My growth beat didn't arrive as a dramatic reinvention. It arrived as small decisions stacked over time. I kept running. I cooked simple meals. I stopped checking my phone every time it buzzed. I bought a new couch because the old one felt like a relic of a life where I was always waiting for someone to soften. I began saying no at work when I needed rest, and yes when I wanted an opportunity. Then, one afternoon, my manager pulled me into a conference room and said a position had opened. Higher pay, more responsibility, a role I had quietly wanted for years, but never pursued because Simone always said, "We need more togetherness. Do not get consumed by work." This time, I said yes. The promotion was private. No public speech. No applause. Just a new title on my email signature and a bump in my direct deposit. I walked back to my desk and sat there for a moment, hands resting on the keyboard, feeling a quiet disbelief. I had spent so long being framed as deficient, too needy, too controlling, too attached, that I almost forgot I was capable. Success in my life didn't look like a spotlight. It looked like stability returning. It looked like sleeping through the night more often. It looked like walking home from work and feeling my shoulders drop when I unlocked my apartment door because there was no Cold War waiting inside. I thought about Simone less as time passed, but the memories still surfaced in odd moments. When I smelled oranges at a market, when a kettle clicked on, when I heard someone casually use the word unsafe to describe discomfort. I learned the difference between discomfort and danger. Simone had blurred that line on purpose because it gave her moral authority. It is easy to win arguments when you label the other person unsafe. It makes them defend their character instead of questioning your behavior. I held on to that lesson. I didn't become cynical about everyone, but I became sharper about language. When someone uses therapeutic terms as weapons, it is rarely about healing. It is about control in a softer costume. One evening, months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into Simone by accident outside a coffee shop near Rittenhouse. She looked the same, polished, controlled, hair smooth, coat expensive. She was talking to a man I assumed was Marcus, though he didn't look at her with warmth. When she saw me, she didn't look away. She didn't soften. She gave me a small, tight smile, like we were strangers who had shared a minor inconvenience. No remorse. Not even then. Marcus glanced at her, then at me, and something tense passed between them. Impatience, irritation, not love. Simone's smile tightened as if daring me to react. I nodded once, calm, and kept walking. My heart didn't race the way it used to. I didn't feel the urge to defend myself. I didn't feel the need to be understood by her. That was my freedom. People will debate lines like, "No one owes affection." They will argue, "Emotional labor is labor." They will insist, "Boundaries can be weaponized." All of those sentences can be true at the same time. The question is what you use them for. Simone used them to excuse imbalance, to recruit an audience, to rewrite my pain as my flaw. She never expressed remorse because remorse would require admitting she had been strategic, not simply finding herself. Karma didn't come as a viral scandal or a dramatic public collapse. It came as the quiet crumbling of her support when they heard her own voice admit motive. It came as a judge refusing to reward manipulation. It came as the man she wanted did not stay when the prize disappeared. And my transformation didn't come as a triumphant announcement either. It came as a private life rebuilt without begging for scraps. I learned to value peace over persuasion. I learned that love without mutuality is just endurance. I learned that a grounded adult doesn't need to win loudly to win honestly. On Saturday mornings now, I still wake early. I still grind coffee and let the smell fill my apartment. I still toast bread. Sometimes I slice oranges out of habit. But I do it without waiting for someone to come downstairs and decide whether I deserve warmth that day. The quiet is not punishment anymore. It is mine. If this story made your chest tight, do two things. Share it with someone who needs to hear this lesson, and comment on the one line that hit you the hardest. Subscribe for the next story, because the scariest betrayals aren't loud, they're calm, coached, and calculated. The end.